Hey, welcome back everyone. It is now April 5th of 2021, and ever since the very end of The Mandalorian Season 2, a lot of fans around the world have been very much skeptical about whether or not both Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni can really pull things off when it comes to this new Star Wars universe. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Disney Star Wars is that yes, we do know that they are heavily invested with shows like Ahsoka, Kenobi, Mandalorian, Andor, and more. And exactly how that's all going to interconnect with each other is really going to be a big challenge, because it's going to take a lot of creators out there like Deborah Chow, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and others. Now, when we go ahead and examine of what happened with the Gina Carano firing, obviously back in February, this was a big deal. A lot of fans were very much up in arms over the entire scenario of how Kathleen Kennedy fired her in the most outrageous way by letting Twitter trends determine Gina Carano's fate over at Lucasfilm as an employee, as an actress, as a major star of the Mandalorian show. So when we go ahead and also examine, Jon Favreau is very much hard at work on developing Mando Season 3 and 4, back-to-back, mind you. In case you guys did not know, he is going to begin filming those back-to-back in the next couple of months. He's writing them both at the same exact time, so those two seasons are going to be very important. Now, the thing about everything related to Gina Carano, obviously, is that this has really caused a lot of fans to just take a step back and say to themselves, do I even want to watch Star Wars anymore? Do I even care about Star Wars anymore? Which led to cancellation of Disney Plus subscriptions and people turning their backs on Star Wars entirely. Now, did a majority of the fans do this? We're not quite sure. We can't really get actual statistics on how many Disney Plus accounts were lost, or canceled, if you will. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what that's going to look like in the next couple of months. However, what's really intriguing is the fact that we have, of course, now that both Disney and Lucasfilm are primarily focused on their new shows, such as Kenobi and Ahsoka, where both Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are currently developing their new universe as best as possible. However, it's described that since the firing of Gina Carano, there have been many setbacks for the Mandalorian series that Jon and Dave are actively fixing. It's best noted that, of course, Kathleen Kennedy has been very regretful over how she portrayed George Lucas since the very beginning of Disney's Star Wars. Now, in a recent interview, Kathleen Kennedy went on to unveil that she feels responsible for perhaps not listening to the fandom 100% when it came to the sequel trilogy movies, and that she believes that if they were actually given more time for the films, they could have done a far better job. Kathleen Kennedy goes on to tell the fans that she apologizes if, of course, her creations did not meet the fans' expectations, but that she still believes that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson did the best that they could for the time that they had with these movies. Kathleen Kennedy goes on to state that there was a time when herself and others at Lucasfilm were considering creating 3-year time gaps in between each film in order to build up the hype, and that in her mind, the sequel trilogy ran into a frequency issue, which is why the creative aspect of the sequel trilogy lacked a bit for the fandom's taste. Additionally, aside from all of this, it's best noted that actress Gina Carano, when she was fired, is that creator Jon Favreau actually tried to stand up for Gina, and actually kept on trying to keep her on board of the Mandalorian series, especially for the 3rd season. However, the Disney board members, or at least around 50 to 60% of them, wanted nothing to do with Favreau's request, and that he did stand up for Gina, in fact, after she was fired from the show, however, Dave Filoni behind the scenes kept quiet about this issue and stance on the Gina Carano situation entirely. Let me just say one thing here about Kathleen Kennedy. Once again, I think that she does not mean a word that she is saying. I believe that that is not a true apology. Let's examine this further, because obviously she is blaming the sequel trilogy's failure on a frequency issue. Basically, these movies releasing way too fast, one after the other. That is without a doubt not the actual cause as to why the sequel trilogy failed. The true reason as to why the sequel trilogy movie actually, or the movies actually failed, is, well, because it did not actually fall directly in line with the Star Wars lore that was in the vision by George Lucas. It also really toyed with the Star Wars fandom. A prime example is dubbing the last film of the sequel trilogy The Rise of Skywalker, and then just having the entirety of the movie be about Rey calling herself a Skywalker. To me, that was a big stab in the back to the fandom by Kathleen Kennedy. Here's the other thing that I think a lot of fans need to know that's very important as well, is that when we go ahead and examine Kathleen Kennedy's outlook on the fandom and how the sequel trilogy failed, she still is blaming it on a frequency issue and not an actual backlash from the fandom based on how they were betrayed. She still does not agree with that fact that they were betrayed. She doesn't believe that Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams did a subpar job on the sequel trilogy movies. Now, in my book, I've gone over this before several times, mind you. Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. You guys can love it or hate it. You're open to your own opinions. I accept everyone's opinion below in the comments. But to me, The Last Jedi is just utter trash. It is. You know, I mean, even people that I know that aren't quote-unquote Star Wars fans that happen to go ahead and just check out The Last Jedi disliked it thoroughly from start to finish. Yet they actually enjoyed Rogue One, a Star Wars story thoroughly from start to finish in comparison to The Last Jedi. Now, here's the other thing about Gina Carano. Now, obviously, a lot of people stood up for her behind the scenes. We're not quite sure who those Lucasfilm employees were. They were a handful of artists and writers and designers and animators that really tried to keep Gina on board of Mando, and were calling for her to stay on the actual show. Jon Favreau was actually one of the big-time creators that tried to keep her on board, at least for a piece in Season 3, to actually be filmed in real time with her on the set. The Disney board members, you know, more than half of them were not having it. They wanted her out immediately because they felt that it was destroying Disney's image, and so they tossed her ASAP. So, honestly, you know, you could tell that Jon Favreau does not want to directly say it to the fandom that he supports Gina and that he believes that what Disney did was wrong, because he may very well, you know, kind of get in a little bit of a trouble with Disney by doing that, obviously. But there's no doubt about it that Jon Favreau cares about the fandom. He cares about the Star Wars fans. I mean, he does. This is a guy that's a genuine fan, you know, since the 1990s, to my knowledge, at the earliest. I mean, if you guys go ahead and watch Swingers, in that movie, I believe it's from 1993, if I'm not correct. Please refresh my memory. In that actual movie, he's making Star Wars references here and there. So, he's been a fan well before Disney actually took over Lucasfilm. The reason as to why he even came back is because of his distaste with The Last Jedi. He had a lot of issues with Rian Johnson's take on Luke and wanted to build up the hype with The Mandalorian to kind of bring Luke back into the equation and really make him the Jedi Master that he was meant to be in live-action form. So, like I said before in the past, guys, you know, drop a comment below. Let me know about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.